Hi, Beth.
Hey, Elaine, what's up?
I'm really, really excited about this.
What got you so excited?
How we use Reiki and everything, because I feel like that's something that people don't talk about enough. How to
Well,
integrate it in everything.
how do you start your day? I start my day before I even get out of bed with Reiki.
hmm
My feet haven't even hit the floor, and I'm calling on Reiki to start my day, because I can't do this alone. God
No.
help me if I did it alone, man. Woo,
hmm
right?
Yeah, I try and do a Reiki meditation every morning. Maybe not first thing when I wake up, but I do try and tap into the energy. If I don't do my at least 5 to 10 minutes Reiki session on myself, little mini short meditation, it's not even like a traditional meditation, but
Right.
just connecting to the Reiki in myself and calling it in and setting the intention that it flows throughout the day, I definitely feel off and I can tell when I haven't done it
Yeah.
and I have to sit down and do it.
Yeah, that's true. I find, like I said, I start with Reiki before I get out of bed, but then after the pets are fed and the coffee's made, and I mean, I don't even have a full cup of coffee before we head to the park. But that's my serious Reiki time. That is my moving, walking meditation. And it's a variety of like what Reiki am I working with today? In our last episode, we were talking about Usui and Holy Fire, and we've talked about Karuna and Animal Reiki. It's kind of like pick a card, like what's coming up, what symbols are coming out, what's the focus of the day, of the morning, who's coming to mind that needs maybe some Reiki, what's the astrology that's getting
Yeah.
called in, so like there's so much that happens and Reiki's in all of it for me. So
Mhm.
like to talk about how we use it, I'm almost like, I think it would be shorter to say how we don't. And I don't know that there's a don't.
Yeah, pretty much. It is because it's become such a part of our daily routine and we use it in everything. Like it's always flowing. We've worked hard to train ourselves to invite it in all the time and set the intention
Mhm.
that it's flowing and stay kind of in the Reiki bubble, the Reiki zone,
Yeah.
which when you're attuned to Reiki at first, I don't feel like people practice it enough for themselves, which we've talked about. That really is the best way to work with it, is to call it
Yeah.
into everything you do.
So I think that there's something still in the collective thinking that it's selfish to use Reiki for yourself.
hmm
It's selfish to think of yourself first.
Right.
But if I'm the only thing that I can change, only thing I have control over is
hmm
this, then, you know, getting back to that authentic divine essence that is me, I need some help.
We all do.
The filter here doesn't always,
hmm
So I think that by working with Reiki in a way that encompasses everything that I do is important. And at the same time, the caution there not to get, I had a friend, one of her sayings was, be careful of the seduction of the familiar, because then you get lazy in it. And so I don't want to take Reiki for granted by just going, oh, yeah, like I did it. I did my thing, being respectful and connecting with that divine flow of energy that is Reiki in a reverent way, but also in an empowering way, like trusting that it's going to help me do what I have to do is the cool thing about
Yep.
Reiki. Yeah. Now, you're doing something interesting because you did it for me yesterday when I asked you
hmm
to send me some Reiki. I was in the midst of a lot of chaos in my day job. So I asked you to send me some Reiki. That's the other thing, knowing when you need some assistance other
Yeah.
than your own self calling in
hmm
Reiki, being willing to receive from someone else. But you did something interesting. The message you sent me talked about you were sending Reiki and you were connecting with Saturn. So you pair your astrology knowledge with the Reiki and the
hmm
planets.
It's
Talk about that.
so in Reiki, we have the symbols. We connect to the symbols and their energy and what they're for. I do that with the planets. I use astrology all the time, every day. I look at the astrology, see what the flavor of the day is. And then I do my meditation. My meditation and my Reiki session with myself is revolved around what's going on astrologically and what I think I might need, what the planets are doing and what my chart is doing. So, like I said, I do the same thing like the Reiki symbols, I do it with the planets. So I call in the energy of that planet. Like you needed help with, you were scattered and you didn't have enough time. So I called in Saturn. Saturn is the planet of time. It's also the planet of restrictions and structure. You needed more grounding, more structure, and you needed
Uh-huh.
time to expand. So I put Reiki into Saturn and brought it down for you.
Yeah.
And then I got the message that one of the Reiki symbols wanted to work with you and a crystal. So,
Yeah. Cover all the bases there, Elaine. You know,
but that's how my information comes in. I can see it. Like I visualize the Saturn and the Reiki combining, and then the crystal just dropped out.
I appreciate that it was a crystal that was not necessarily one of your go-tos.
Yeah, no,
You
it's
know,
not.
it had a darker flavor. It was a smoky quartz. Not
Mhm.
that you don't like smoky quartz. I don't mean it that way, but like,
Right.
where I revel in the darker crystals. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
bring it on. So that was really helpful, though. I just find it fascinating to me. And I felt the shift immediately because I was too much in my head. And see, that's the thing about working with a community of Reiki practitioners, a
Mhm.
community of Reiki masters is phoning a friend for help. Yeah, sure. In our last podcast, we were talking about not needing the intermediary with the shift from Usui to Holy Fire. But at the same time, sometimes it is nice to have someone reach out on your behalf
Yeah.
and connect that way.
Mhm.
I love Saturn.
He's a tough guy, but once you get a handle of what his energy is, he's much easier to work with.
We've been lifelong friends.
We struggled for a bit,
Well,
as is the way.
yeah. So I love that about how your Reiki practice.
Thank
I mean,
you. Well, I feel like we learned a lot from each other. We talked about some of the struggles we went through in the last podcast about connecting with the energy in a certain way. But I feel like once we released control on how we were supposed to use the
uh-huh.
Reiki, it automatically integrated with everything we did. We could see where we could use it in the stuff that we're passionate about, like astrology, you with your art, and now you're doing the neurographic art, which is amazing.
Right.
And I'm really excited about that for you.
The neurographic art and Reiki is a game changer in process of old stuff. You know what I mean? Or limiting beliefs. I think that's never ending. I could continually create art with neurographic art and Reiki and see where it goes. It takes me into such a meditative place that I can really quiet my mind. And that's kind of a paradox because you're thinking about something, you have the thought that you put on paper, but then all the lines are the thought and the process. And then if you add a little dash of Reiki to that, well, where does it go from there? I can lose myself in time in that process. And at the same time, I feel like Reiki expands the time for me. So I complete art pieces very quickly. The process is a couple of hours. I could be in the line drawing and then in the coloring, that kind of thing. It affords me that sanctuary, you know,
Mhm.
to release some of my energy in that creative way of being such a creative person.
Yeah.
So I love it. And, I've experimented with using the Reiki symbols on the paper before I draw. I use Reiki to determine if the piece is completed too. Like, is there more?
Okay. That's interesting.
And then two, in the journaling process, because I write on the back of most pieces in an automatic writing style, I allow information to come through me onto the page.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I've used it in my other art expressions of creating the pendulums and twisting wire. The Reiki always shows up, like just knowing which crystals want to play together. Like
Mhm.
that's an interesting thing.
Because you've paired some that I would never think to pair. But then it turns out I'm like, oh my God, that's perfect. Even
Yeah.
energetically, the way that you intuitively make the pendulums before the energy comes, and we have our group where our students are dealing with a certain kind of energy, and then you're like, oh, I made this
Yeah.
pendulum. Perfect.
Yeah. I think the Reiki shows up like the secret shopper
Hmm.
because when I'm buying crystals and beads, I'm not necessarily thinking about what I'm going to create unless I have a repeat thing I need to purchase for. But sometimes I just shop for beads when they get here and I take them out of all that wrapping and let them breathe, so to speak, and I clear them with Reiki.
Yep.
They end up laying next to each other. And it's like, oh, you guys want to be together. Okay. And, you know, it's a strange little process. Yeah, exactly, Lily. I just heard Lily groan.
Yeah.
It's a strange little process of how they show up
Mhm.
together. And so I just kind of go, okay,
Yeah.
you know,
I think it's cool. And definitely I could see where that would be Reiki guided. It's like you're bringing in the Reiki energy and it's giving you what you need, even though you don't know what you need, if that
right.
makes sense.
Well, I think the hard part, this is kind of a spoiler alert for my pendulum junkie shoppers that just love them so much and want all the next ones.
Hmm.
Right now, I'm being directed not to make so many of the same.
Hmm.
I feel like the individualized or, you know, there's not a one size fits all. People need different tools for where they are. I might be making onesie twosies of a particular design. And of course, if someone sees one and then they say, but I want that one, of course I would make it for you. But at the same time, you know,
Hmm. I
that's
could
an
see that.
interesting thing. And I think it's the energy that's directing that, you
Hmm.
know?
I think that you'd want to make more of them from a consumer standpoint because we are business owners and you
Right.
do sell them. You would want to make more of what people want. But I think it's cool that you're following the energy that they need to be a little bit more individualized and exclusive to
Yeah.
who needs what.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
really neat.
I don't know though, because some of these new ones,
I've
typically
been waiting for one that you've been working with for 2 weeks now.
yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the things, right?
Mhm.
So, like, if I make one and I keep one of every one that I make, that is going to be a lot of a pendulum. I'm not opposed to having a lot of pendulums because I like them. They're like a little crystal grid in my pocket.
Yep.
So it works. However, with crystals, you have a season that you work with a particular crystal or you work with it for a particular reason. You don't necessarily have to work with it all the time. And so I think that's what's showing up here. The one that you're referencing is the one with the Santa Maria aquamarine and the malachite.
Mhm. Again, a combination I would put together.
Yeah,
It's like the water balancing the earth aspect,
right.
which is really cool.
Well, I
Hmm.
like plants too. So there's that. Well, and I
Mhm.
think too, okay, so you just brought up something interesting from a couple episodes ago that I think it could be the integration of the animal Reiki frequency of the spirit of the earth
Mhm.
aspect because, our mineral friends like crystals come into play several times in Reiki teachings. In Reiki Master, we do crystal grids and stuff, which is right up your alley. There's the world peace grids that are around the planet that you
Mhm.
can connect with. With the evolution of these different types of Reiki coming in, they work in concert with one another. Like we've said before, Reiki is one thing in different dialects or different languages. And so that idea of working with the water element, working with the earth element is a component to bring balance and harmony where it's needed. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And yeah, not to go down the animal rabbit hole, but I really feel like since I took the animal Reiki, now that I'm thinking about it, that's when I really started working with the different elements more. Because I work with them in astrology, which are most prominent energy element, that kind of thing. But it wasn't until I started taking the animal Reiki that I used those elements in my Reiki sessions and with myself and the crystals, because crystals are minerals and they're of the earth. So you
right,
connect more with them after the animal Reiki, I feel,
right.
because
And
it's earth energy.
it is. And I think that's when my design, because I've been making prayer beads and all sorts of things for years. I think you even said it yourself. You said that the ones I'm making now, you're more attracted to than the ones I started making 6, 8 months ago. Not that there's anything wrong with those. It's just
No,
that the free is
it's
different.
different. It's got
Yeah.
a higher vibration almost.
Well, because they're charged with Reiki. I use Reiki all day long. So while I'm making something, there's Reiki in it,
Yep.
and so that's a part of it too. Like, so, using Reiki, like you can run down the list of using Reiki on charging your food with Reiki or blessing your food with Reiki or, putting it on the kids as they go to school, on the car, the dog, or your clothes, connecting Reiki to all those things that are important to you or that you need assistance with, like using Reiki to do your taxes. It was there while I was doing my taxes last week. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. If I would remember to be in that frequency,
Mhm.
it would maybe take some of the anxiety away, maybe some of the stress.
Maybe.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else we want to add here. There's something right here on the edge that wants to come in,
Mhm.
and I might need a little assistance there because I'm not sure what it is, but it's like there's still a piece of
Mhm.
this.
So the thing that's dropping into my mind is, I don't know why, because it's not really on our topics, but how Reiki can be sent to ourselves, the future, the past,
Yeah.
because you were talking about your taxes and how in the moment we get so stressed and so anxious and we don't think to call in Reiki all the time. It's not like we're not perfect. We're not like, oh, I'm going to call in Reiki right now. When we're in the moment, a lot of times we forget because we're human.
Yeah.
But if you know you're going to be doing your taxes on Saturday, you send Reiki to yourself into the future because with Reiki, there is no time and space and it's not linear. You can use the distance symbol to send it to yourself, which a lot of people don't do because they think distance Reiki, you send it to other people, but you
Right.
can literally send it to yourself to a situation that's coming. We've talked about healing situations from our childhood, sending Reiki
Right.
back to situations that maybe led us in a wrong direction or got us off our path.
Yeah.
The situations that we have a lot of guilt or shame about.
Yeah. And those, there's a word, like I want to say that's master level work, and yet it's not. It's master level awareness because you're allowing Reiki to master you at that point and integrate it into everything that you do and trust.
Mm.
So, like, whether, whatever flavor Reiki we want to talk about, I think it's building, trusting the relationship that you have with Reiki because it's source energy. If I trust, which I don't trust very well, that's one of my cardinal lessons of this incarnation, to trust more. At the same time, I have a lot of things that happened in my life that caused me not to trust. Okay. So, in the area that you're talking about, if I take Reiki and I send it back to my past self who experienced those breaches of trust and heal her, not to get stuck in the story of the trauma, but to support her because she is part of the me that I am now. And I've learned from those things. So, in that process of sending back to her, I am fortifying and freeing myself to be who I'm going to be in the future. And then the rabbit hole I go down is I go, okay, well, hey, future self, help me out right now because I'm struggling with XYZ, struggling in this relationship or this job or this money situation or this dilemma that I'm thinking that something is so much more difficult than it needs to be.
Right.
Help me out.
Okay.
And can I trust myself and can I trust Reiki to move me through this lesson?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big piece.
I feel like we need an episode just on that.
Yeah, I feel like we do because there are taboo conversations that are hard to share because our culture now is being sensitive to triggering other people in their traumas. But when you reveal your woundedness and how you got through it, that's empowering.
Yeah.
Maybe we do
Yeah.
need to do that one.
Okay.
Put it on the list.
All
Put
right.
it on the list.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to take a big swig out of that little thing just got me choked up. So there's something there that still needs a little work right there.
Probably.
Okay. How do you want to wrap this one up? I feel like we're at that place.
What if we sent Reiki to our future episodes, our future selves, and everybody
Oh,
that's listening to kind of,
okay.
I see a path opening of energy. And I feel like that's part of our work here and why we're doing the podcast is to open for other people as well as ourselves.
Yeah. Because there really is a lot of potential in the collective to heal a lot of things that we may think is insurmountable.
Yeah.
I think it is possible to move through, learn from, and heal these things.
But
Because
people
we're
got to do
not,
their work. That's the
well,
caveat.
there's something that's shifting in the energy,
Mhm.
right? Like
Absolutely.
a big shift in the energy.
Oh, you're talking astrologically.
Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of planets are going from Pisces to Aries, a few of the bigger planets. I know. Pisces. So although it's a little sad, it's not because Pisces energy is not, I love it, but it's a little murky. It's a little hard to grasp. And we've kind of been in this area of shadow work, I feel like collectively, going
Well,
into the shadows and maybe getting stuck in the shadows and getting stuck in the mud. Now it's time to go into Aries where it's bold, it's fiery, it's your authentic self. It's coming out of the mud, washing off, setting everything on fire in the best way possible. So, yeah, and one of the planets is Neptune. They just moved from Pisces to Aries, and it's going to retrograde back into Pisces, but that's a whole other thing before it goes into Aries for good next year. But Pisces and Neptune together are about spirituality. So we're coming from this like muddy spiritual space where a lot of people have had these spiritual awakenings, but don't know what to do with them. I just see shadow and I see clouds and I see like fog. It's hard to see through. That's what the picture in my mind. And then when you step into Aries, the fire lights it up. It lights up this spiritual space and this collective consciousness. And how do we use it to become more authentic? And how do we use it for the good of the collective, not just in the shadowy space in our heads? How do we move it into the physical?
okay. So I'm sitting here waiting, listening. I'm like so excited because this thing just dropped into my head. You just described one of the holy fire experiences, talking about the fire, it doesn't burn,
Yeah.
but it's action oriented, and that there are flames under the water when you go into one of the meditations. And
Hmm.
it is that balance. And so I'm thinking this is such a beautiful evolution of holy fire, moving from the spiritual aspect of Pisces of the water into the action oriented
Yeah.
fire element, which if you think about it, this energy has been in Pisces for a long time. We'd
Hmm.
have to correlate the dates, and I don't know exactly, but I'm sure you're
Yeah.
going to go check it
I
out.
think
But
it's
I
like
think,
14-ish years that Neptune has been in Pisces. Don't quote me on
okay,
that, but
but
yeah,
that is the time that Holy Fire was
it is.
transitioning.
Oh,
Okay, so
wow.
I am having like such an aha moment right now.
Hmm.
Like I am having, and I'm excited that we're recording this
Yeah.
because it just unlocked so much stuff for me in my head.
Hmm.
And I don't know where we're going to go with it yet, but we're going somewhere with this. So this is to be continued.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's a key. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
I
So
don't
I
even want to
think
stop.
I know. I think maybe what we need to do, sorry, friends, is we need to stop the podcast here
Mhm.
because we have some unpacking to do. And it's super exciting. And I hope you come along with us to find out where we're going next.
Yes. Love it. All right. To be continued.
To be continued.
Okay.